Key point 1. Transforming our approach to resolve deep conflicts. The Anatomy of Peace tells a story about personal and professional conflicts. We see ourselves in the story's characters and become emotionally invested in their struggle with conflict. Embedded in the story are profound insights that will challenge you to become a better person, a change agent. The world can change when we become intentional about getting to the heart of conflicts to resolve them. The potential and strength of ordinary humanity go beyond a change in behavior to knowing your neighbor without fear. Finding peace in any situation comes from realizing it hinges on your choices, not others' actions. The choices we make prepare us for either war or peace. When we pervert issues relating to race, religion, and color, we develop an overpowering need for justification that morphs into war within and with the rest of the world. Effective team leaders and people in caring professions should study these principles. The Anatomy of Peace shows that the foundation of a happy and peaceful life is compassion and humanity. Without these, our hearts may be at war daily, whether we're at home or work. We must embrace the clear, workable solutions that this summary presents. Our way of being must demonstrate care and responsibility. When leaders of organizations make this shift in their essence, the level of care that their organizations provide to clients will be better. We'll see people as people, not objects. Age-old conflicts that have plagued society for years will finally end. Learn about resolving conflicts relating to parenting, managing employees, crises in the Middle East, and self-actualization. This piece is a life raft for those who are suffering in silence and drowning in fear. Surely, our world will be different if we're willing to practice and integrate these concepts. Key point 2. Misguided solutions fuel endless worldwide struggles. These days, interpersonal and societal relationships appear to be breaking down at a faster pace. It becomes imperative for us to learn how to heal what is breaking and maintain connection when people are pulling apart. Family members are becoming divided over political differences. Workplace disputes impact familial bonds, while home conflicts disrupt concentration on the job. A 2013 executive coaching survey from Stanford University revealed that CEOs rate conflict management as the top skill over others. From family units to countries, there's consensus on the need to learn to manage conflicts effectively. Despite this clarity on the need for conflict resolution skills, many people express confusion over how to go about it. We are confused because we make faulty assumptions about conflicts. Disagreements persist as each side anticipates the other to make a change first. All conflicts come from the same source, and when we're unable to identify the source, we inadvertently stoke the fire we're trying to put out. The Anatomy of Peace provides proven methodologies to the problem of conflicts in the form of a story. Two men who have suffered deep losses from each other's ethnic cousins found a way to live peacefully and help others find peace in their lives. We too can find solutions to the problems that weigh us down. The opportunities for a better family, organization, and society lie in the challenges we face. Key point 3. Transform ourselves to inspire change in others. The influence pyramid diagram suggests prioritizing efforts to ensure things go well over addressing problems. Yet, we invert this pyramid in our efforts to resolve personal and professional disagreements. We often try to fix our children, alter our partners, correct our employees, and discipline those who behave disorderly. But most problems in life need more than correction to disappear. If your interaction with others is primarily to get them to change, you'll not elicit change in them. It is by living to help things go right, rather than simply correcting things, that you become an agent of change. To help things go right, however, you need to have a heart that is at peace. For example, consider the story of the endless battle over Jerusalem. Originally a Jewish city, Jerusalem has been the center of much controversy for many centuries, with two major forces, Western Crusaders and Muslim military, occupying the territory. While both sides have committed unspeakable atrocities against each other and the original occupants, one Turkish military leader stood out. His name was Saladin. Saladin's armies recaptured Jerusalem in 1187. While historians attribute his outstanding success to luck and good fortune, there is a much deeper reason for the military and political success of the most successful leader of the period. The key to Saladin's wartime triumph was his inner tranquility. The state of your heart toward others is the most important factor in resolving conflicts. While others plumaged the city and carted away their resources, Saladin forbade his men from hurting a single Christian person or taking their possessions as spoils of war. He was humane in the way he treated his enemies and captives. In all our interactions, we're choosing to see people as either humans or objects. How we see others determines how we relate to them. When they are objects to us, we want to fix them. However, when we see them as humans, our hearts are at peace with them. They're no longer inferior, but equals. Did you know Muslims captured Jerusalem for the first time in 638 AD? Key point 4. Humanizing others fosters peace. Objectifying triggers war. Grouping individuals based on race, culture, or faith into a single stereotype reduces them to mere objects. Saladin's humane treatment of people shows that in extreme situations like war, we can choose to be at peace or at war in our hearts. That choice will determine how we handle everything else. In a difficult business negotiation, for example, a negotiator that sees others in the negotiation as people will be more successful than the one who sees them as objects or obstacles they need to surmount. Reason? People do not like jerks. It is when our hearts are at peace that we can make clear-minded decisions. When we act compulsively, we make our lives more difficult. Successful negotiators are those who understand the other side's concerns as much as their own. When your heart is at war, you'll respond to objections raised by others in a hostile manner. This hostility will produce more hostility in an unending cycle. Can you think of situations where you felt someone reacted unfairly to you despite bending over backward for them? It's because people respond to the way you act toward them rather than your behavior. You may make sacrifices for your child, your spouse, your employee, or your boss. But if your heart is at war toward them while making those sacrifices, they won't see the sacrifices you're making. They'll respond to your way of being toward them. It's a failure in our way of being that creates problems in our lives, and not a failure of strategy. Key point 5. Many conflicts aren't conflicts. They're collusions. Collusion differs from conflict in that it involves active participation, while conflict is passive. We attract failure when we have warring hearts. By seeing others as objects, we're asking them to make our lives difficult. We begin to provoke in others the things we say we hate. A conflict where the parties attract the things they claim to be fighting against is called collusion. A conflict might be the result of a misunderstanding, but collusion comes from reacting to others in the same way we feel they have acted toward us. This pattern of collusion escalates because we are unaware of it. Consider a wife who has asked her husband to mow the lawn. The husband would rather play tennis with his friend than mow the lawn. His wife complains and badgers him about prioritizing the lawn. The husband begins to see a demanding, unreasonable wife that nags all the time. He decides to protest by badgering her in return. Even when he mows the lawn, he's doing it with disdain. Consequently, the wife sees a self-centered, inconsiderate, and immature husband. Over time, both begin to seek people who agree with them and gather them as allies. This gathering of allies is how conflicts spread. Some examples of allies we gather include our children, neighbors, and people who are in similar situations. When we gather allies, we develop a propensity to demonize others by lumping them into lifeless categories. Masses of unknown people become objects to us. To solve conflicts, at least one party must be willing to see how they may be wrong. Believing you're correct in a dispute doesn't resolve it. Real solution comes from recognizing potential deeper faults in your stance. Our behavior towards others is the most crucial aspect of being right or wrong. Our behavior or positions might be right, but we may be mistaken in our way of being. While your attitude or response may be justified, you need to ask if your perception of the people you're acting toward is correct. If we can't put an end to the violence within us, there's no hope for putting an end to the violence without. Arbinger Institute. Key point 6. Finding peace starts with understanding our choice for war. The concept of seeing people either as objects or as people lays the foundation for why we choose war instead of peace. This idea originated from a philosopher called Martin Buber. Hundreds of years before Buber, René Descartes, a French philosopher, presented the idea of the primacy of the separate human consciousness, which he called the I. Martin Heidegger was the philosopher who challenged this individualistic assumption by arguing that the language that enabled Descartes to formulate his idea didn't originate from him. Therefore, the argument for a separate individualistic I was refuted. We are, in fact, in the world with others. No one is an island. Buber, Heidegger's contemporary, then proposed that there are two ways of being in this world: I-thou or I-it. That is, we can see others as people or see them as objects. However, he didn't answer the question of how we move from an I-thou orientation to an I-it orientation. To answer this question, we must find out how we have foregone peace and chosen war. We choose war when we act contrary to our senses of what is appropriate. This choice is an act of self-betrayal. For example, when we choose to resist helping a person in need based on some explanations we make to ourselves about how they don't deserve the help, we're choosing self-betrayal. In essence, we're choosing war. We don't always choose to do what we know is the right thing to do. Sometimes we know we need to apologize to someone, but we choose to withhold that apology with an explanation to justify our decision. When we betray ourselves in this way, we create a new need within, a need to see others accusingly and to care about something other than truth and solutions. Then we invite others to do the same in response. That need is the need to be justified. When we see others as people, we want to help them. But when we dehumanize them, we create a need to justify ourselves for violating the truth about their humanity. We inflate others' faults in our minds and hearts when we betray ourselves. Key point 7. Different justification styles are the germs and germination of war. Hearts at war make others look horrible by exaggerating their faults, the differences between them and those they're blaming, and the importance of anything that will justify them. Self-betrayal is the virus that corrupts us. We choose a way of being that requires justifying our actions when we betray ourselves. We transform everything we've been through to make us feel justified. Self, others, past, present, future, hardships, responsibilities, and worldview take on a different meaning to us. Our justification styles vary from one person to another. 4 common styles of justification are the better than style of justification, the I deserve style of justification, the need to be seen as style of justification, and the worse than style of justification. When we examine each of these styles, we'll see ourselves more clearly and discover ways our hearts are warring. The better than style of justification involves feeling superior to others and making judgments about people's worth based on the differences we've noticed between them and us. In the I deserve style of justification, we feel mistreated, victimized, entitled, deprived, and a host of other negative emotions. When we're being soft instead of demanding justice or offering to help, we're likely engaged in a need to be seen as style of justification. For example, if you want to be seen as likable, you'll hardly do the needful if the other person won't like what you do. The worse than justification style makes you see yourself as faded, broken, deficient, or not as good as others. When you find something you're not good at, you use it as an excuse to separate from other people. Their needs won't penetrate because you feel worse than after all. Self-betrayal is an act of violating your sensibilities toward another person, to see them, yourself, and the world differently. Honoring a sense to help someone doesn't mean you'll ultimately be able to help them. However, the experience is different when you're unable to help from when you are unwilling to help. When you're willing but unable to help, you start with a desire to help and end with that same desire. But when you're unwilling to help, the desire disappears, and you enter into any of the self-justification boxes to explain why you didn't help. Key point 8. Our background shapes our unique style of self-justification. People from a critical environment are likely to develop a worse than or need to be seen as justification style. If you grew up in a holier-than-thou or wealthy family, you might gravitate toward better than and I deserve styles. Regardless of our backgrounds, we all strive to find justification by any means possible. The good news is that we can unlearn justifications. Even amidst escalating conflicts, we can discover a path to peace. First, we must identify the ways we've developed self-justification over the years. Consider how the internal conflict you harbor has led to external strife with others in your life. Each person must carry out an introspection to see where we might be inviting the very behavior we complain about. When we react instead of respond, what justification box are you operating from? Notice your battles and ponder your wars. A heart at peace is the first step toward becoming an agent of peace. Key point 9. Inspiring change in others without forcing it. When you realize how messed up a situation is, there's a temptation to give up, to think that the conflict isn't solvable. The best leaders and parents are those who get out of the self-justification boxes. They stop making themselves victims and start inviting others to make the positive changes that they are making. When we surrender to a lie that things cannot change. The justification wins. The way to go is to determine the change you want to see. Take the first step toward reconciliation by receiving others as people in your heart, not as objects. We separate from each other at our own peril. As humans, we need to realize how we can blame and justify one person but be kind and gentle toward another. This realization empowers us because it shows that we have the power to get out of the justification box completely. To do this, we need to focus on creating or holding on to experiences that enable us to see others as humans. When you feel stuck, take your mind to people and places that give you a vantage point for seeing the world the right way. You can talk to these people or ask them for help whenever you find yourself blaming and justifying. Experiences free from blame and self-justification enable you to solve previously challenging problems. These new thoughts you have about the troubling situation will provide fresh perspectives that were formerly elusive. Consequently, you're able to find outward peace. The following questions might help you overcome self-justification. What are the things that are troubling this person or people? How am I making things worse for them? Are there other ways I've neglected or mistreated this person or people? What form of justification is obscuring me from the truth about myself and others and preventing solutions? Is there something I feel I should do for this person to help the situation? Asking these questions doesn't diminish your suffering, but enables you to see the ways the other person or people are also suffering. That would force you to lay down your victimhood and to see new possibilities. Hope will replace anger and despair. Key point 10. Action must accompany your mental escape from victimhood. Only you can determine the appropriate action because you're the only one who's been in the situation. Honoring the desire to help is how we stay out of our self-justification boxes. Where interpersonal conflicts are concerned, having a heart at peace and taking action to make things better will diffuse the situation. For conflicts that have a much deeper history, a person whose heart is at peace will be able to assess the situation without exaggerating it or justifying how they've been complicit in it. Instead of provoking war, you'll become an influence for peace. Some problems may be too complicated for a heart at peace to solve, but they cannot be solved without starting from a peaceful way of being. To spread the idea of peace, you need to help others to change. The base of the influence pyramid relates to helping things go right, while the apex of the pyramid focuses on dealing with things that are going wrong. This pyramid offers a strategy for spreading peace. Insisting on others change without considering our need to adapt is wrong, though seeking corrections isn't. While you're justifying your actions, you have a tendency to be mistaken in your assessment of the situation. Therefore, to help things go right, the first step is to get out of the self-justification box to obtain a heart at peace. Communicating the reasons for change comes next. Correcting people without teaching them correctly will fail. Asking people to get out their self-justification boxes without explaining what it means will also not work. Teaching and communicating reasons for change need to be accompanied by listening and learning about the concerns of the people you're educating. Learning keeps us humble and open to change, instead of assuming that only the people we're teaching need to change. If we are poor learners, our teaching will be ineffective. Arbinger Institute. To learn from others, we need to build a relationship with them and with those who influence them. The influence pyramid is the panacea to the conflicts and collusion we face at all levels. Conclusion. The anatomy of peace reveals that we must sue for peace by gaining a heart of peace within. Warring hearts cannot establish the right relationship that will create peace. Your heart is at peace when you see people as people and not as objects. The influence pyramid describes what we must do to resolve conflicts and create an enabling environment for people to change. It contains 7 layers divided into 2 levels. 1. Dealing with things that are wrong, the top level. And 2. Helping things to go right, the lower level. The lower level contains 6 parts, while the top level makes the 7th part. The parts of the lower level are teaching and communicating, listening and learning, building a relationship with people who influence the people we are inviting to change, and developing a heart of peace by recognizing your self-justification boxes and getting out of them. To deal with things that are wrong, we need to correct them. To ensure positive outcomes, our attention should be on the elements at the base of the pyramid. Here's the catch. We cannot correct things that are wrong if we don't first help things to go right. Most conflicts persist because one person is spending time, energy, and resources trying to correct the other. We need to focus on the lower level instead. The influence pyramid indicates that the resolution to an issue at any level is always found at a lower level. The base of the pyramid determines how effective you'll be at any level of the pyramid. Why is your way of being? Are you at peace or war within you? Behavioral strategy alone cannot create a culture of change. An intelligent outward strategy must match a peaceful inward strategy. Try this. Start at the base of the influence pyramid. Get out of your self-justification box. Develop a plan to stay out of the box and execute the plan.